Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Sana Jabin, working as an assistant professor in Department of Botany, Division of Science and Technology, University of Education, Lahore. And this is the 23rd lecture of the course, Mycology and Plant Pathology. This lecture is about lichens. In our syllabus outline, under the heading Symbiotic Relationships, we will discuss about lichens, mycorrhiza, and their significance. First, we will discuss about lichens. Let's start with the introduction. Lichens are dual organisms. The dual nature of lichens was first hinted by De Bary in 1866 and clearly recognized by Schwendiner in 1867. A lichen is now defined as a self-supporting association of a fungus, that is mycobiont, and a green alga or cyanobacterium, which is also termed as photobiont. As a result of this association, a stable thallus of specific structure is formed, and this thallus is called the lichen. The fungal partner usually contributes most of the biomass of the symbiosis, including the external surface. It is thus termed as the ex-habitant. Whereas the unicellular or filamentous photobiont cells are collectively called the inhabitant because they are located inside the lichen thallus. Since the structure of lichens is almost entirely due to the fungal partner, lichen taxonomy is synonymous with the taxonomy of the mycobiont. So here we can say that lichens are the symbiotic association between the fungi and algae in which both the partners get benefited. Fungi get nutrition from the algae, being algae as a photosynthetic organism, while algae get protection from the fungi because fungi form a protective layer over the algae, so it get protection from the fungi. If we talk about culturability of these organisms, it is possible to grow the algal and fungal partners of many lichens separately in pure cultures. Most photobionts multiply radially in pure culture, while the fungal partner, if it grows, it typically shows slow growth and it forms a sterile leathery mycelium. It does not produce the characteristic lichen thallus. This is marked in contrast to the natural thallus, where the mycobiont displays its full sexual and asexual cycle, whereas the photobiont cells often appear swollen and are arrested in their cell cycle, that is, their cell division is controlled by the mycobiont. So, the photobiont shows the restricted growth in the natural habitat. The nature of the morphogenic signals exchanged between the symbiotic partners is yet unknown. If we talk about the species diversity of lichenized fungi, There are about 17,000 species of lichenized fungi have been described to date. Only about 100 species of photobionts are known. Although this number may rise because photobionts are rarely formally and fully identified by the lichenologists. Most lichenized fungi belong to Ascomycetes, and they constitute more than 98% of the total fungi that form this association, and only a few imperfect fungi and some 20 species of Basidiomycota also form this type of symbiotic association. The most common photobiont genera are the green algae. It includes Treboxia, which found in about 50% of all the lichens, and Trentipolia and the Cyanobacterium, including the Nostoc species, form this association. About 85% of lichenized fungi have a green algal photobiont, and 10% are associated with a cyanobacterium. The remaining lichens contain both green alga and a cyanobacterium. Lichens occur in all climatic zones from the Arctic and Antarctica, where they provide the dominant vegetation. Because of their ability to tolerate repeated cycles of drying and rehydration and to survive in extreme environmental conditions, for example, extreme temperatures, high solar radiation, and other adverse conditions, including drought, lichens can colonize a range of terrestrial habitats which are not accessible to the higher plants. Lichens are classical pioneer organisms. For example, on bare rocks or infertile soils. Lichens can cause the weathering of rocks by secreting oxalic acid, which reacts chemically with the rock surface, and the rate of degradation or the rate of weathering may be 0.5 to 3 millimeter per 100 years. Some species cause much more rapid weathering of the limestone surfaces, including historical monuments, and at the rate of up to 2 millimeter in 12 years is the weathering rate of the limestone surfaces. Extensive lichen communities also exist on the bark and foliage of trees, and these lichens are known as the corticolous lichens. Additionally, freshwater and marine species have also been described. Now moving towards the lichenometry. Some lichen thalli live for over 1,000 years and can be used for the determination of the age of rock surfaces because of their slow growth rate. This discipline is known as lichenometry. Crustose lichens are commonly used for lichenometry because they have the slowest growth rate. An example of the lichen which shows very slow growth is the map lichen. The scientific name of this lichen is Rhizocarpon geographicum. It has been applied for the time point of exposure of the rock surfaces, which is caused by the earthquakes, and also to date the standing stones on Easter Island. Here in this picture, you can see the standing stones which are present in Easter Islands in Chile. Archaeologists have documented 887 of the massive statues known as moai, but there may be as many as 1,000 of them on the island. Most were carved from the volcanic rock between 1100 and 1680 BC. So the age of these statues can be calculated using the lichens. These islands are located about 2,000 miles west of the Chile, and the climate of this region is humid and subtropical. So you can see here the lichens are growing on these statues, and you can use these lichens as to determine the age of these statues. Here in this picture, you can see the map lichen, that is the Rhizocarpon geographicum, and this is the thallus of Rhizocarpon geotropicum. Let's move towards the morphology of the lichen thallus. Lichen thalli come in three basic shapes. Crustose, which is the crust-like. Fruticose, it is shaped like a miniature shrub. Or foliose, which is leaf-like. It should be noted that these are purely descriptive terms which have no taxonomic meaning, and the intermediate forms between all these thalli also exist. Here in this picture, you can see an example of crustose lichen, and here it is powdery appearance of this crustose lichen, so it is named as leprose lichen, and the species is Chrysothrix candelaris. By far the most common type of the crustose thallus, which forms a thin spreading crust which is firmly attached to the substratum by its entire lower surface. So it is very hard to separate these thalli from their substratum. They can come in many bright, vibrant colors like sunny yellow. Here in this picture, you can see a bright yellow color. Orange and red as well as gray and greens can also be found in this group. In the morphologically simplest crustose lichens, fungal hyphae are loosely associated with the photobiont, but do not form a protective upper cortex. Such lichen thalli appear powdery and are referred to as leprose, as I told you earlier, then often have highly hydrophobic surface, that is they cannot absorb water and they are highly hydrophobic thalli. Here in this picture, you can see another example of crustose lichen, which is the squamulose type of crustose lichen. And in this picture, you can see Candelariella species. In squamulose lichens, the crustose thallus forms small scales. Here you can see the small scales which are called the squamules. which become partially raised from the substratum, giving the surface a scurfy appearance. Other crustose lichens produce a thicker thallus, often held together by mucilage, as in the gelatinous lichens. Here in this picture, you can see a gelatinous lichen, which is also an example of crustose lichen. And in these lichens, the thalli are held together with the mucilage. Here in this picture, you can see an example of foliose lichen, which is Flavoparmelia caperata. This stratification is developed further in the second thallus type, and this is the foliose lichens by the development of a lower cortex. So in these type of thalli, there is an upper cortex and also the lower cortex is present, and the attachment to the substratum is often by the bundles of hyphae, which are known as rhizinae. These are not the rhizoids, but they are the rhizinae. As a result, the thallus appears leaf-like or lobed and can be detached from the substratum without being damaged. So they can easily be separated from the substratum. The third thallus type is called the fruticose. And here in this picture, you can see an example of fruticose lichen, which is the Usnea flammea. They are shrub-like or branched appearance and is raised from the substratum, or they are hanging down from the substratum. In some cases, a fruticose thallus may develop from a basal crustose or the foliose thallus. So they may arise from the crustose or the foliose thallus. Since I have told you that these are not the taxonomic groups, they are just the descriptive terms. So they may evolve from the crustose or foliose thalli. In this picture, you can see a cross section of a lichen thallus. In crustose lichens that appears as powdery mass, that is the leprose lichens, fungal hyphae are loosely associated with the photobiont cells, but do not form a protective upper cortex. In most highly differentiated crustose thalli, the photobiont cells are positioned in a defined layer located underneath a upper cortex formed exclusively by the mycobiont. Here you can see A represents the upper cortex and it is composed of mycobiont, and the hyphae are compactly arranged here, and here you can see a layer of green cells which represents the green algae or the photobiont, and this layer is represented by B. So here you can see the photobiont cells are protected from the adverse environmental condition with the help of fungi that form the outer cortex. Air spaces in the photobiont layer and the medulla underneath the surface permits the gaseous exchange. So here you can see there are some intercellular spaces, and in these spaces gaseous exchange occurs. And the differentiation of the lichen thallus into horizontal layers, as here you can see this stratification, this layering pattern is known as the stratification. Stratification in fruticose thalli is often tubular or concentric, rather than horizontal. And it resembles the more complex crustose types in possessing an outer cortex overlaying a photobiont layer and a medulla, but lacking an inner cortex. So this is exceptional for the fruticose thalli. But here in this picture, you can see a normal thallus of the lichen, which shows the stratification. And here A is the outer cortex, B is the algal layer, C represents the medulla, and here the fungal hyphae are loosely arranged, and the gaseous exchange occurs between these hyphae. And here D represents the lower cortex and E are the rhizinae, that are the hyphae of the attachment to the substratum. Here in this table, you can see a summary of the most important orders of lichenized ascomycetes and their characteristic features. And this table is based on the phylogenetic analysis based on the DNA data. And here, if you see, the order Lichenoraes includes the largest number of species that form the lichen association, while other orders also form this association, but the Lichenoraes is the most important order that is involved in the formation of lichens. And here you can see all types of lichenized thalli are formed by these members which belong to the Lichenoraes. And here you can see the photobiont will be the green algae or the cyanobacteria, while other orders also shows the formation of lichen thallus, and they are restricted to some kinds of thalli, but most of the thalli are found by the members that belong to Lichenoraes. This is all about an introductory account about lichens. For detailed study, you may consult the book Introduction to Fungi by Webster and Weber. Thank you.